Homeless. Boy found a backpack of a lost biker's child in a creek. The name tag started a citywide ride. The backpack was wedged under the creek's roots like the water had tried to bury it. Eli ripped it free, and the moment he saw the name tag, stitched beside a faded biker patch, his stomach dropped. Because that name wasn't just a kid's name, it was the name the whole city had been screaming since sunrise. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from. The creek ran behind the rail yard, a muddy ribbon nobody visited unless they were desperate or stupid. Eli was neither. He was hungry. The shelters were full, the dumpsters were locked, and the creek bank still coughed up cans and scrap after a storm. His hoodie was thin, his hands were cracked from cold water. He stepped between broken bottles and wet reeds, eyes scanning for anything worth $1. Then, the neon blue backpack flashed in the mud. Kid-sized, cartoon lightning bolts, one strap torn clean like someone had yanked it hard. It was half submerged, pinned under a knot of roots. The creek kept tugging at it like it wanted to drag it away. Eli should have left it. Trouble had a smell, and this had it. He unzipped it anyway. Soggy paper, a stuffed fox with one eye missing, a little inhaler in a zip pocket, a juice box crushed flat, and in the clear sleeve on the front, a laminated school lanyard. Harper James. 8 years old, if the flyer Eli had seen taped to a corner store window was right. Below the name was a phone number, emergency contact, and stitched to the plastic, frayed at the edges like it had been saved from a fire, was a patch, a winged wrench over a skull. Steel ravens. Eli didn't know biker politics. He knew what people did when those bikes rolled through. They shut up, they moved, they tried not to look like a problem. But he also knew the name Harper James. He'd heard it through the morning, sirens, loudspeakers, neighbors talking too fast in doorways. Missing child. He stood there on the creek bank with muddy water seeping into his shoes and stared at the inhaler until his stomach turned. Kids didn't lose inhalers on purpose. They didn't throw backpacks into creeks. Someone had dumped this. Police would be the right move. It was also the move that could put him in cuffs for touching evidence, for being in the wrong place, for not having the kind of life they liked. So he made the only move that felt like it might actually get the backpack to people who would move heaven and asphalt to find that kid. He slung it over his shoulder and started walking. Uphill, the city looked clean and bright and busy, pretending nothing bad could happen. But every block had Harper's face on paper, posters on poles, prints in windows, the local news bleeding from radios. Eli kept his hood up, head down, moving like he belonged to shadows. Outside the corner store, 2 women were talking loud, like fear needed volume. They said she vanished, one said. The ravens are out, the other answered. They're not going to stop. Eli's skin prickled. He kept walking. When he reached East Ridge, he understood what the ravens are out meant. Raven's Nest Customs. A garage with the roll-up doors open and a parking lot packed with motorcycles in tight rows. Men stood in clusters, tense, radios crackling. A hand-lettered map was taped to a workbench inside, sections marked off in thick red lines. Eli stopped at the curb, the backpack suddenly feeling like a bomb. He stepped onto the lot anyway. Conversation died. Heads turned, eyes locked onto him, dirty shoes, hollow cheeks, clothes that didn't fit. A woman with a buzz cut narrowed her eyes like she was weighing whether he was bait. A big man with a red beard moved first. "Private," he said, stepping in front of Eli. "I found this," Eli forced out. He lifted the strap with both hands. "In the creek, behind the rail yard." That sentence hit the lot like a brick. "The creek?" someone snapped. "We haven't cleared that line." "Why were you there? Did you take anything?" The red-bearded man grabbed Eli's shoulder. "Answer." Eli hated this part, being pinned under adult eyes, feeling his body shrink even when he tried not to. "I didn't take anything," he said. "I just saw the name tag." A man in the center of the group, still, rigid, started moving. The others parted without thinking. Eli felt it in his bones. This was the one everyone listened to. The man stopped in front of him. Leather vest, steel raven's patch, dark hair cut short, eyes that looked like they hadn't closed all night. "What name?" he said. Calm voice, dangerous calm. Eli fumbled the zipper, pulled out the lanyard, and held it out. The man took it. His thumb wiped creek mud over the laminate as he read. For a second, His face didn't move at all. Then, something in him cracked through the armor. Raw panic shoved down so hard, it turned into rage. "Harp," he whispered, like the word hurt. "That's my girl." Ryder didn't just stare at the tag. He grabbed the backpack from Eli's shoulder, unzipped it with shaking hands, and dumped the contents onto the hood of a nearby truck. The soaked stuffed fox hit first. Then the inhaler rolled out and clicked against metal. Ryder snatched it up like it was gold. "She needs this," he said, voice breaking for the first time. Not tears, something sharper. "She can't go a whole day without it." The buzzcut woman's eyes hardened. "Then this isn't about a kid getting turned around in the park," she said. "This is somebody buying time." The lot went dead silent. The red-bearded man swore. "Ryder," Ryder James looked up at Eli. "Where exactly?" "The bend," Eli said fast. Roots sticking out. It was pinned. Strap was torn, like it was thrown in. Ryder's eyes narrowed. "Thrown." Eli realized what that meant the same time the bikers did. This wasn't a kid wandering off. This was someone trying to erase a trail. Eli noticed movement across the street, a black SUV idling at the curb, windows dark. A man in a hoodie sat behind the wheel, head angled toward the lot like he was counting patches. When Eli looked straight at him, the man didn't look away. He just lifted his phone, took a photo, and the SUV rolled forward a few feet like it was getting ready to follow. Eli opened his mouth to warn somebody, but the moment vanished under Ryder's shout. Ryder snapped his head toward the garage. "Mouse! Everybody! Now! Rail yard creek line! Full sweep!" Men moved like they'd been waiting for permission to explode. Helmets grabbed, radios lit up, engines coughed to life one after another, rolling thunder across the lot. Eli took a step back, heart hammering. He hadn't expected this, how fast a parking lot could become a rescue unit. Ryder turned back to him. "You're coming," Eli's voice cracked. "I can't." "You can," Ryder said, not angry, certain. "You're the only one who saw where it was." Mouse leaned in. "Kid, if she's down there, every second matters." A siren wailed suddenly, close, too close, charging down the street toward the garage. Blue and red strobed across chrome and wet asphalt. A police cruiser swung into the lot, fast. Another followed. Doors flew open. "Everybody stay where you are," a cop shouted. "This is an active investigation." Ryder didn't flinch. He walked toward the cruiser like the siren belonged to him. A tall officer stepped out, eyes scanning the patches. "Ryder James, stand down. Let us do our job." Ryder held up the lanyard. "Do your job," he said. "My kid's backpack was dumped in a creek you haven't even touched." The officer's gaze flicked to the tag. "Where did you get that?" Ryder pointed at Eli. "He found it." The officer strode toward Eli, jaw tight. "What's your name?" "Eli." The officer looked him up and down. Mud, thin hoodie, no adult, no phone. "So you just happened to find the missing kid's backpack." Mouse took a step forward. "Back off!" The officer raised his voice, trying to pull the lot back under badge control. "We need him downtown. Statement, now!" Ryder moved between them. "You take him downtown, you lose the creek, you lose time." The officer opened his mouth. Ryder's phone buzzed. He glanced down. His face changed, and the shift hit the whole lot like a wave. Ryder looked at Mouse. They found a shoe. Engines roared louder, immediate, furious. Men started mounting up like they'd been shot out of the ground. The officer stepped into Ryder's path. "You can't," Ryder leaned close, voice low. "Move, or you can explain why you stopped us while my daughter froze." The officer hesitated. That hesitation lasted 1 second too long. Ryder turned, grabbed Eli by the sleeve, and dragged him toward the nearest bike. "Get on," he said. Eli stumbled. "I've never—" "Hold on and don't let go." The first motorcycle revved hard. Police lights washed Ryder's face blue, then red, then blue again. A gloved hand reached for Eli's arm, and Ryder gunned the throttle. The bike launched like it wanted to tear the street in half. Eli's cheeks stung with rain. His fingers locked around Ryder's belt, because there was nothing else to hold on to. No rail, no safety, just leather and speed, and the sound of a father who'd decided the rules didn't matter anymore. Sirens wailed behind them, then fell back when Ryder cut off the main road and threaded the convoy through warehouse alleys. Eli risked one look over his shoulder. 2 cruisers were trying to follow, and behind them, quiet, steady, wrong, a matte black SUV slid through the same turns without drifting, as if the driver knew the route. Ryder drove them into the rail yard's belly, where streets turned to broken pavement and then to gravel lanes the city pretended didn't exist. A sagging chain blocked the service road. He didn't slow. His boot clipped it, the link snapped, and the ravens poured through. They reached the bend Eli had described. The creek was swollen and brown, chewing at the bank. Roots clawed out of the mud like hands. Mist hovered low, and the storm still spat cold drops that felt like needles. Ryder killed the engine and jumped off. "Line!" Mouse barked. 10 feet apart, both banks. Don't touch anything. Mark it and shout. Flashlights cut through the reeds. Boots sank. Radios hissed. Eli pointed with a shaking hand. Under that root ball, that's where the backpack was pinned. Ryder crouched at the spot, staring like he could force the creek to give more back. Footsteps crunched above them. "Step back!" a cop shouted from the top of the bank. 2 more appeared behind him, one already unspooling yellow tape. Mouse didn't move. "You weren't here 10 minutes ago." "This is an active investigation," the tall officer said as he climbed down. His eyes found Eli. "You, come here." Eli stayed beside Ryder. Then a voice tore through the search line. "Found something." Ryder slid down the bank, nearly losing his footing. Razor was kneeling by reeds, flashlight fixed on a small shape half buried in silt. A tiny sneaker. Pink, child-sized. Nobody touched it. The air changed the moment they saw it. Ryder crouched so close, his breath fogged the mud. "That's hers," he said, like the words scraped his throat. Mouse lifted a hand. "No touch, photos." A rider snapped pictures. Another planted 2 small flags near the sneaker without disturbing it. Eli's eyes swept the waterline for the other shoe. Nothing. Down by the reeds, a younger rider lost his footing and went knee-deep into the creek with a strangled curse. Cold water swallowed his leg. 2 others hauled him back before the current could pull him under, but when he came up, he was holding something between 2 fingers. A small blue hair clip, the kind that snapped shut like a tiny jaw. Mud-caked but intact. Ryder stared at it like it was a heartbeat. That's from her," he whispered, and Eli realized the man wasn't just collecting clues. He was collecting proof she had existed here, alive, minutes before someone erased her. Eli noticed the smear on the sneaker's side, pale yellow clay, fine and chalky, nothing like the creek's dark sludge. "That dirt," Eli said. "It's not from here." Mouse angled her light. The yellow smear flashed. "Good catch," the tall officer scoffed. "Or it's nothing." Ryder looked up slowly. "Nothing doesn't end up on my kid after she disappears." Eli saw the mud grooves next, 2 shallow drag lines leading away from the water toward the service road. Straight, deliberate. "There," Eli said. "Those marks, they go up." Mouse's voice snapped. "Freeze. Nobody steps there." She marked the grooves with flags and traced them with her beam until they vanished into the gravel lane. Above the bank, yellow tape fluttered like it was doing something. Mouse climbed to the lane and swept her light. "Tracks," she called. "Fresh." 2 wide tire impressions cut through the wet gravel, too broad for bikes. A van or SUV, crisp edges, recent. Mouse crouched, reading them. "Came in from the north end, stopped, turned here, left hard." Ryder's eyes went hard. "This is a move point." A woman in a hoodie under her vest pushed through the line. Juno, the one everyone called when someone bled. She'd been at the garage, quiet, carrying a medical bag like it weighed nothing. She held up the inhaler Mouse had pulled from the backpack earlier, sealed now in a plastic bag. "This is albuterol," she said. "Rescue, not a daily controller. If she needs it and she doesn't have it..." She didn't finish. Ryder's gaze flicked to the creek, the shoe, the drag marks. "How long?" he asked. Juno's voice stayed professional, but her hands trembled. "Depends on the kid. Could be hours. Could be one bad panic moment and she spirals. We don't get to be slow." That word, slow, hit Eli like a punch. Because slow is what cops did when the missing kid wasn't theirs. The tall officer's gaze flicked to Eli again. "So the homeless kid finds the bag. Now he's a detective." Mouse didn't even look at him. "He's the only one noticing details. Try it." Eli blurted, "Wait, footprints." On the far bank, reeds were matted down in a narrow path. In the soft mud, small, uneven prints, one heel digging deeper like the child was stumbling or being tugged. Next to them, heavier boot marks angled the same direction. Ryder's hands curled into fists. "She was still on her feet," he said. and the hope in his voice sounded like pain. They found a rail yard worker near the loading dock, smoking with shaking hands, eyes darting like he expected trouble. "We're looking for a child," Ryder told him. The man swallowed. "Last night, after midnight, a white van came down here, no logos, stopped near the creek, 5 minutes, then it left fast." Mouse's voice sharpened. "Plate?" "Too dark," he said, "but the back door had a dent and one brake light was out." Ryder leaned in. "Which way?" "Toward the old viaduct," the worker said, pointing. He hesitated, then added, "I heard a kid. One cry. Like someone covered her mouth." Ryder didn't shout. He just nodded once, brutal and controlled. "We split," he told the Ravens. "Half hold this line, half ride every camera between here and the viaduct. If we get one frame of that van, we get a route." Mouse opened her phone, already typing. "I'm sending the word out," she said. "Not just Ravens. Shops, tow trucks, barbers, anyone who owes us a favor. If a white van with a busted brake light buys gas, we'll know." Ryder nodded once. "And I want eyes on the viaduct entrances. Both sides. Nobody plays cowboy. We don't chase blind. We box the route and squeeze." The tall officer's radio crackled, thin and urgent. "Unit 12, command wants the biker group contained. Do not allow them to mobilize toward Central. Repeat, contain." The officer's shoulders stiffened like he'd been handed permission. He looked at his partner, then at the rows of bikes on the gravel. "You heard that," he said to Ryder. "This is over." Ryder didn't blink. "No," he said, calm enough to be terrifying. "This is where you decide if you work for a kid or for your pride." The officer stepped closer. "If you leave, I start making arrests." Mouse smiled without humor. "Then you'll be busy, and your kid will still be missing." For a moment, Eli thought fists were about to fly. He saw it in the way hands flexed around handlebars, in the way boots shifted for traction in wet gravel. Ryder lifted one hand, palm down. Instantly, the tension held, not gone, held. "Nobody touches a cop," Ryder said. "We find Harper, that's it." Eli started to back away. The air felt like a trap. A hand seized his collar. The tall officer yanked him toward the cruiser on the road. "Witness goes downtown." Eli's feet skidded. Fabric tightened at his throat. "No!" Ryder was there in a breath. He didn't swing. He simply peeled the officer's fingers off Eli's hoodie one by one. "He stays," Ryder said quietly. "You want words from him, you take them here, and you don't touch him again." The officer's face flushed. "You don't tell me." Ryder leaned closer, voice ablade. "Contain this ride and my daughter dies. That's what you'll be explaining." For a beat, the only sound was the creak and idling engines. Then a shout cracked from down the lane. "SUV! Black SUV on the overpass!" Eli's head snapped up. Above the rail yard, the matte black SUV crawled along the guardrail and stopped directly over the creek bend, like it needed to confirm the Ravens had found the right place. A window lowered a finger's width. A phone lens glinted. Mouse raised her radio. "Plate! Get the plate!" Eli squinted through rain. The plate flashed between drops. 7K2. Ryder's voice hit him. "Eli, what do you see?" Eli swallowed, trying to trap the numbers before they vanished. The SUV's brake lights flared. The driver's door opened. The SUV's door opened like it had time. A man stepped out under the overpass lights, hood up, hands empty. He leaned on the guardrail and looked straight down at the flags, the pink sneaker, the muddy bend, like he was checking off a list. Eli's mouth went dry. "Plate!" Mouse snapped. "Get me that plate!" Two Ravens shot up the service ramp. Engines climbed in pitch, echoing off steel. Eli forced his eyes to focus through the drops as the SUV edged forward. 7K2, he said, pinning each character in his head. 7K2. The man on the overpass turned his head sharply like he'd heard it. Ryder's gaze locked on him. "He's watching us." Mouse's voice went flat. "He's watching the kid." The man lifted his phone. Ryder grabbed his radio. "Razor Brick, overpass, don't engage, just get the plate." The SUV rolled away, slow, teasing, then surged off the overpass toward the north access road, tires spitting water. Razor and Brick hit the top just in time to see it vanish and went after it. "Ryder, we go!" someone shouted. Ryder stared at the drag marks, at the sneaker, at boot prints beside it. His throat worked like he was swallowing fire. "We don't chase blind," he said, voice tight. "We search." Mouse crouched beside the root ball where Eli had pulled the backpack, her light stabbed into the water. It was pinned, Eli said, like somebody shoved it under. Mouse nodded once. Waited. She angled her beam. Beneath the surface, jammed into the roots, something flat and pale sat in the silt. Plastic, not rock. Another piece deliberately placed. They wanted it found, Mouse said, but on their timing. Juno's eyes went to the inhaler bag again. If she's without this, she said quietly, she can panic. Panic makes breathing worse. That's a spiral. Ryder's jaw tightened. How long? Hours, Juno said. Or less if she's scared. Ryder looked out at the creek like it had answers, and he hated it for staying silent. Break. The tall officer came down the bank again, eyes hard. We're locking this down. Now? He pointed at Eli. Witness comes with us. Ryder lifted the sealed bag with the inhaler in it. You take him, you lose time. You're not the law, the officer snapped. Ryder's voice stayed low. No, I'm her father. The officer's radio crackled, a colder voice, not dispatch. Unit 12, contain the club. Don't let them mobilize toward Central. The officer clicked his mic too fast. Copy. Eli caught another voice bleeding through the channel, faint but clear. Keep the Ravens busy, Ryder's head snapped. Who's that? The officer turned his shoulder, blocking the radio like it was a secret. Mouse's eyes narrowed. That isn't your dispatcher. Back up, the officer warned. Mouse didn't. She just looked at his badge number, slow and obvious, and a couple civilians at the top of the bank lifted their phones like they'd suddenly remembered how filming worked. Up the road, a bike screamed past, chasing rain. Mouse's radio popped. Mouse, it's Razor. Eyes on the SUV. North access toward the old viaduct. Partial plate. 7K2. Rest is mud. It's driving like it's trained. Brick cut in. Breath rough. It's trying to box us against a barrier. It wants a wreck, Mouse answered sharp. Don't give it one. Stay wide. Mark it. Let it run. Eli felt the hair rise on his arms. The SUV wasn't fleeing like a guilty person. It was working. Mouse stood. 6 bikes with me. Now. They mounted up and ripped out. The officer stepped toward Ryder again, like he was going to try one more time. Ryder didn't move. He just stared back until the officer stopped. Behind them, a rider shouted, Fabric! Ryder broke away and was there in 3 strides. A strip of bright purple cloth was snagged on a thorn bush at the top of the bank, torn hard, fresh, the kind of synthetic lining that came out of cheap rain jackets. Ryder stared at it. That's not hers. Mouse's voice cracked through the radio. SUV is baiting us into a chase. Don't bite too hard, Eli blurted. The dirt on the sneaker, it wasn't creek mud. It was pale, dry, like construction dust. Ryder looked at the smear again, then at the tire tracks in gravel. New builds, he said, voice tight. Riverfront projects. Juno crouched near the drag marks without stepping on them. Look, she said. In the mud near the heavier boot print, something tiny gleamed. A clear plastic zip-tie tail snapped clean. Mouse didn't touch it. She marked it with a flag and backed away. They bound something, she said, or someone. Ryder's throat flexed. We split. Break. Half the Ravens held the creek line. The rest fanned toward main roads, radios alive. And the city answered fast. A tow truck driver rolled up with his amber lights blinking, window down. I heard Ravens on the radio, he called. Tell me what to look for. A mechanic from 2 blocks over showed up with a flashlight and a spare battery pack. A nurse on her lunch break came jogging in scrubs, breath fogging, asking Juno what meds a kid might need. Mouse's voice kept cutting in and out on the radio from somewhere in the storm. If you see the van, don't chase. Pin location. Text it, call it. We build a box. Then a call came in. Possible match. Gas station at 12th and Larkin. White van just left. Rear door dent. 1 brake light out. Ryder's face went hard. That's toward the river cut. He grabbed Eli's sleeve. You're coming. The tall officer stepped in again. Nobody leaves. Ryder walked right up to him. Then arrest me. The officer hesitated, just long enough to glance at the phones pointed at him, then moved aside with a look that promised payback later. Ryder shoved Eli into a battered pickup. Juno climbed in with her medical bag. Ryder gunned the engine. Break. They tore through wet streets, cutting behind warehouses, avoiding the main routes where cruisers were stacking up. A police unit turned onto their block, lights off, shadowing. Ryder didn't look back. He didn't have to. Eli felt it like pressure on the back of his neck. Mouse's voice hit the radio again. Ryder, SUV just dumped onto Harper and killed its lights for 2 blocks. It's not scared. It's hunting lanes. Ryder answered once. Copy. We're at 12th and Larkin in 60. The gas station was all harsh white light and puddles. The cashier behind the glass looked like he'd seen a ghost. We need your cameras, Ryder said. Police, already asked, the cashier stammered. Did you give it? Juno asked. They said they'd be back with a warrant. Juno's voice stayed calm. A child might be inside that van, please. The cashier's eyes flicked to Eli, mud on his shoes, fear in his face, then to Ryder's hands shaking on the counter like he was holding himself together by force. He opened the back door. In the office, a cheap monitor showed the pumps. The cashier rewound. A timestamp glowed in the corner. 1:12 a.m. There, he whispered. A white van rolled into frame, rear door dented like a punched-in rib. One brake light was out. It paused at pump 3. Eli leaned closer until his breath fogged the screen. A man got out, cap low, jacket too big. He didn't pump first. He scanned the lot like he expected someone to be waiting. Then another vehicle slid into frame behind the van. Matte black SUV. Eli felt his stomach drop. That's it. On the monitor, the SUV stopped at an angle that blocked the van from the street, like a shield, like a handler. The van driver cracked the side door. Something small shifted in the darkness inside. Quick, terrified movement. A pale hand, a sleeve. Then the door shut again, fast. Juno's fingers dug into her own palm. That's a kid, she whispered. Ryder didn't breathe. The van driver walked into the store on camera, bought something, came back out. A plastic bag swung from his hand. The logo flashed as it turned, juice boxes, kid stuff. Then the SUV's door opened and its driver stepped out close enough for the camera to catch a patch on his shoulder. Not police, a clean logo, shield shape, letters beneath it. GRS. Ryder's voice came out like gravel. What is that? The cashier swallowed. Guardian Response. Something. Security company. They do patrols for the new downtown builds. Riverfront. Those big fenced sites. Construction dust, fresh concrete, pale dirt. Eli's skin went cold. Ryder rewound and paused on the patch until the pixels screamed. He pulled his phone out and snapped a photo of the screen. Send that to Mouse, Juno said. Ryder hit send. Outside the office, the gas station bell chimed. Slow steps crossed the store. Not the cashier, not Juno, not Ryder. Ryder killed the monitor. His hand closed on Eli's hoodie and pulled him back from the screen. The office door creaked open. A figure in dark rain gear filled the doorway, face hidden by a hood. One gloved hand held a phone at chest height, recording. Eli's breath snagged. Ryder, the figure lowered the phone like it didn't care if it was seen anymore. Then it stepped forward, and Eli saw the small silver flash in its other hand. The figure didn't rush. It stepped into the cramped office, hood dripping, boots leaving wet marks on the tile. The silver flash in its hand wasn't a knife. It was smaller, 2 exposed prongs, held like the person had used it before. Eli's throat tightened. Ryder shifted in front of him. Phone down, Ryder said, voice flat. The hooded person lifted the phone higher, lens locked on Ryder. The pronged tool angled with it. Hand over the phone, the person said. Juno's hand slid into her medical bag, fingers closing around something hard, scissors maybe, or a metal flashlight. You're not police, she said. The hooded person ignored her. Now. Eli understood all at once. They'd seen the footage on the monitor, the GRS patch, the van, and this was the cleanup. The attacker's arm snapped out. The prongs crackled in the air. Ryder turned his shoulder and took the hit on leather instead of skin. Sparks jumped uselessly. He grabbed the wrist and slammed it into the doorframe. The phone clattered to the floor, still recording. Juno kicked it under the desk without looking down. Ryder drove the attacker backward into the hallway and shoved hard. The hooded person hit the chip rack out in the store, bags exploding like gunshots. The cashier behind the glass flinched and ducked. The attacker rolled fast, reaching for the phone. Ryder planted a boot near the phone, not crushing it, just owning it. Tell your handler, Ryder said, low and shaking, that you don't get to erase my kid. The hooded person's eyes lifted. Cold. Not scared. The store bell chimed. Two men in dark rain jackets entered, scanning the room like they already knew what they'd find. One looked at the attacker on the floor, then at Ryder's boot near the phone. A tiny nod passed between them, quick enough to miss if you weren't watching for it. Juno stepped in front of Eli. "Ryder," she said, calm but urgent, "not here." Ryder's gaze flicked to the cashier's terrified face, to the security cameras above the register, to Eli's shaking hands. He made a choice in a blink. "Eli." "Out," he said. They moved. Eli ran behind Ryder and Juno as they burst through the gas station doors into rain that felt like needles. Ryder shoved Eli into the pickup, Juno in beside him, then sprinted back 2 steps. He snatched the phone from the floor and smashed it once against the counter edge, screen, then back, until it went dead. He left it in the wreckage and ran. The pickup peeled out. In the side mirror, Eli saw the 2 men step outside and raise their hands to their ears like they were reporting. At the far end of the lot, the matte black SUV rolled forward as if it had been waiting. Ryder's phone buzzed. Mouse. "We got trouble," Ryder said the moment he answered. "I heard," Mouse said. Wind roared behind her voice. "Westgate tip is exploding. People are moving." "That's a pull," Juno cut in. "They want riders and cops in the same place." Mouse went quiet for half a beat. "Copy. I'll split it." Ryder's eyes stayed on the road. "Send a decoy group, loud enough to satisfy the lie. Keep real eyes on Riverfront and any route out of the rail yard. And Mouse, get someone to that gas station office. The footage is evidence." Mouse exhaled hard. "Already done. I've got a tow driver headed there with a thumb drive. Ryder, listen, the police channel is hot. They're not just reacting, they're steering." Eli stared out the window at wet streetlights streaking past. Steering. Like they could turn a whole city with a push. The radio popped again. Razor, breath rough. "Mouse, SUV is moving with a cruiser, like its escort." Brick cut in. "It's not running, it's leading." Ryder tightened his grip on the wheel. "If they're leading to something." As if to answer, a cruiser slid into view behind them with its lights off, shadowing, and behind it, smooth and quiet, the black SUV. Eli's stomach dropped. "They're on us." Juno leaned forward, eyes on the mirror. "They want you to panic." Ryder didn't. He drove like the road belonged to him, tight corners behind warehouses, service lanes with potholes deep as bowls, underpasses where the sound of the engine became a drum in Eli's ribs. The cruiser stayed on them anyway, never closing enough to hit, never falling far enough to lose. Then the road narrowed where a construction project had chewed up 2 lanes, leaving one strip of wet asphalt between orange barrels and raw dirt. Ryder eased off the gas. "Here comes the shove," he said like he'd seen it before. The SUV surged. It swung wide as if to pass, then cut inward, trying to push the pickup into the barrels and the drop-off beyond them. Eli slammed into the door. Juno's arm shot across his chest, pinning him back. Barrels toppled and bounced, spraying dirty water. The SUV's rear quarter brushed the pickup with a metal shriek that went straight into Eli's teeth. Ryder didn't ram back. He dropped a half-beat, let the SUV overcommit, then punched forward into the gap it left. The pickup shot out of the choke point and onto open street. For one clean second, the SUV's rear plate was visible in the rain. Eli leaned forward, eyes burning. 7K2, 9, M5. The SUV jerked and something snapped loose from its bumper, a thin plate frame, half hanging. It slapped the road and spun into a puddle. Ryder cut hard onto a side lane and braked. The cruiser kept going, refusing to stop, and the SUV chose the cruiser, abandoning the shove like the moment was already filed away. Ryder jumped out into the rain and snatched up the plate frame before the water could carry it off. A dealership sticker on the back, smeared but readable. Gresham Fleet Services. "Fleet," Ryder said, voice tight. Juno's eyes narrowed. "Company vehicles, registered, trackable, if someone actually wants to." Eli looked up and saw a security camera on a pole facing the lane, red light blinking. He felt it again, that sick certainty that they were being watched from above and from behind. A siren whooped. The cruiser hadn't left. It had looped. It skidded into the lane and stopped sideways, blocking them. 2 officers poured out. One of them, the tall officer from the creek, face set like stone. His partner kept his hand near his holster, like the rain could turn everything into a reason. Hands where we can see them, the tall officer barked. Ryder didn't raise his hands. He held up the plate frame instead. That SUV is tied to a security contractor. We have footage at the gas station. Your people are steering this. The officer's eyes flicked to the sticker, then away, like looking at it too long would burn him. He pointed at Eli. You, against the truck, now. Eli took one step back on instinct. Juno stepped between them. He's a minor, she said, steady. You don't put your hands on him. The officer ignored her and moved in anyway. Against the truck, Ryder's voice dropped. Touch him and you'll need a whole squad to pull me off you. The partner officer shifted, uneasy, glancing over his shoulder toward the intersection like he was waiting for someone else to arrive and take responsibility. A bike roared into the lane, one of the Ravens who'd been shadowing them. The rider killed the engine, rain streaming off his helmet. Ryder, he shouted. Westgate was a trap, dead end. Cops were waiting. They grabbed Dez and two civilians who tried to film. Ryder went still. They arrested him? For what? The rider snapped. For existing. For writing. The tall officer's mouth tightened. Obstruction, he said automatically. Interfering with an investigation. Ryder stared at him like he was staring through him. My child is missing. And you're making it worse, the officer fired back, a little too fast, a little too rehearsed. Juno's phone buzzed. She checked it, and her expression drained of color. Ryder, she said. What? It's Mouse, Juno whispered. She says the Westgate tip came from a number that's used inside the sheriff's building, not a civilian. Eli felt cold spread through him, slow and heavy. This wasn't chaos. It was design. The tall officer's partner took another glance down the street, and this time his eyes widened. A black SUV rolled silently into the mouth of the lane behind the cruiser, headlights off. It stopped like it had authority. Eli couldn't breathe. The tall officer didn't turn around right away. He only tightened his jaw, like he knew exactly who it was. The SUV's window lowered a finger's width. A smooth voice came out of the dark, polite enough to sound insane. Ryder James, it said. We need to talk about the boy. Ryder's head turned a fraction, not toward the SUV, toward Eli. The way a man checks the one thing he can't afford to lose twice. The voice from the SUV stayed calm, like it belonged in a boardroom instead of a rain-soaked alley with a missing child hanging over everything. We need to talk about the boy. Ryder didn't answer. He didn't have to. The way his shoulders set said, the only reason he hadn't charged the SUV was Eli standing 2 feet behind him. Juno kept her body between Eli and the officers, chin high, eyes scanning hands, pockets, angles. The tall officer, Unit 12, cleared his throat like he was about to read from a script. Ryder, this is bigger than you. Cooperate. From the SUV, the smooth voice continued. No one wants this to get messy. We can make sure your community isn't blamed for what's happening. Mouse had been right. They were steering. And now they were offering the wheel. Eli's knees felt loose. He could smell wet asphalt and gasoline and the bitter tang of adrenaline in his own mouth. He glanced at Ryder's hands. One was wrapped around the plate frame like it was the last piece of solid truth in a world made of lies. Ryder finally spoke, low. You're not police. A soft chuckle came from the SUV. Correct. Then why are you here with them? Ryder asked. The tall officer's partner shifted like he wanted to melt into the rain. The voice from the SUV stayed polite. Because we're trying to prevent an incident. Juno's eyes narrowed. An incident like a child dying? Silence. Not denial. Just silence. Ryder took one step forward. The tall officer moved with him, blocking. Back, the officer snapped. Ryder didn't stop. You tell me where the van went, he said toward the SUV, or you move out of my way and let me find my daughter. The SUV's window lowered a fraction more, just enough to show a sliver of a face inside, male, middle-aged, clean-shaven, eyes that looked practiced at pretending to care. We can trade, the man said. The boy for information. Eli felt his stomach drop through the pavement. Ryder's head turned slightly, the smallest glance at Eli, like he was checking if the kid could run. Juno's voice went sharp. Absolutely not. The man in the SUV ignored her. He's become a complication, a witness who doesn't understand the damage he can cause. Ryder's voice turned to iron. He found my kid's bag. He brought it to me. He's not a complication. He's the reason we're not still searching parks like idiots." The tall officer's jaw flexed. "Ryder!" Ryder cut him off without looking. "You heard him. You're working with him." The partner officer's eyes flicked to Unit 12, then to the SUV, then away like he couldn't stand being seen looking. The man in the SUV sighed theatrically. "Ryder, Ryder, you're emotional. That's understandable. But your club has a history. The city is watching. One wrong move and you'll be the headline instead of the child." Mouse's voice crackled over Ryder's phone, urgent and broken by wind. "Ryder, don't let them isolate you. They're trying to peel you off the search grid." Ryder didn't raise the phone. He kept his eyes on the SUV. "You want Eli," he said, naming it plain. "Why?" "Because he's pulling you off script," the man said, "and because you're letting him." Eli's throat tightened. He couldn't tell if he wanted to shout or disappear. Juno leaned toward Ryder, barely moving her lips. "We don't negotiate with a security suit in a dark car." Ryder's nostrils flared. He looked at Unit 12 again. "Arrest him," Ryder said. "If you're a cop, arrest him." Unit 12 didn't move. That was answer enough. Ryder's voice dropped. "Fine." He moved fast, one step sideways, then back, dragging Eli with him by the sleeve. Juno snapped with them, tight to Eli's shoulder. The rider who'd arrived, Rain, killed his engine and rolled the bike to block the lane's exit with the pickup. Unit 12 barked, "Don't move!" Ryder did the opposite. He shoved Eli into the pickup's back seat, slammed the door, then leaned in through the window. "Listen to me," Ryder said, eyes locked. "Whatever happens next, you do exactly what Juno says. You hear me?" Eli swallowed hard. I didn't." "You did," Ryder cut in. "You did the right thing." Juno climbed in beside Eli, twisting to keep him covered. "Head down," she whispered. "No hero moves." Ryder slammed the driver door and turned the key. The cruiser's door swung open. Unit 12 stepped forward, hand raised, something black in his grip. Taser. Ryder revved. The SUV's engine purred like it was smiling. Mouse's voice hit the phone again. "Ryder, Harper's asthma. We just got her clinic info. She had an attack 2 months ago. Severe. If she's crying, running, scared, Ryder, she's on a clock." Ryder's face tightened. He didn't answer. He just punched the pickup into gear. Unit 12 fired. The taser prongs hit metal and sparked, snapping off into the rain. Ryder swerved, bumped the cruiser's bumper just enough to open space, and shoved through. The SUV rolled forward, smooth as oil, trying to close the lane behind them. Rain roared on the roof. Eli's teeth chattered uncontrollably. They hit open street. For 2 blocks, Ryder drove like a man who didn't believe in stop signs anymore. Then, he cut hard into an industrial lot and killed the lights. The pickup coasted into darkness between stacked shipping containers. "Out," Ryder whispered. They climbed out into rain and shadow, breath steaming. The city noise faded here, swallowed by steel. Rain, helmet still on, pulled in behind them on his bike and killed the engine, then rolled the bike by hand deeper into cover. Ryder held up the plate frame again and looked at it like it was a map. "Gresham Fleet Services," he muttered. "Fleet means paperwork. Paperwork means someone can pull it." Juno wiped rain off her face. "If they want to." Ryder glanced toward the street where the cruiser's siren whooped once, then went quiet again. "They don't," Eli hugged himself. They said trade me." Ryder's head snapped to him. "No one's trading you, not in this world." Juno crouched in front of Eli. "Eli, look at me. You're not alone in this, you understand? You're not." Eli nodded, but his eyes kept sliding to the gaps between containers. He could almost hear the SUV rolling, slow and patient. Mouse's voice crackled again, now more controlled, like she'd gathered herself into a weapon. "Ryder, I've got an opening. A nurse writer, Tessa, works at the pediatric clinic. She confirmed Harper's last prescription refill date. She's due. She may have had only a few doses left." Juno closed her eyes for a beat. "That's bad," Mouse continued, "and I got a location hit. One of our volunteers saw a white van with a dent and 1 brake light at the riverfront redevelopment fence near Gate C 10 minutes ago. Security waved it through. Ryder's whole body went still. "Gate C," he repeated. "Gate C," Mouse confirmed. "And Ryder, that site has storm drains, big ones, old infrastructure under new concrete." Eli felt cold spread in his gut, construction dust, pale dirt, storm drains. Ryder turned to Juno. "You said panic spirals her breathing." Juno nodded. "Especially if someone covers her mouth, especially if she's in a tight space." Ryder's jaw clenched so hard it looked like it might crack. He hit his radio. "All units. Real target is riverfront redevelopment. Gate C. Do not chase the SUV. Don't get pulled. We box riverfront. We lock every exit." The radio erupted with replies. Bikes moving, cars starting, voices layered over rain. But under the chatter, Eli heard something else. Another channel bleeding through, faint, like a ghost. "Contain the Ravens at riverfront. Media presence. Make it look like..." Juno heard it too. She looked at Ryder. "That's them." Ryder's eyes turned cold. "They're going to meet us there with cops." Mouse's voice came through again, fast. "They already are. Unit 12 is rerouting cruisers toward riverfront under public safety. Ryder, they want a confrontation on camera." Ryder stared into the darkness between containers, thinking like a fighter, like a father, like someone who'd learned how cities worked when they wanted you to lose. Then he looked at Eli. "You saw the SUV driver on the overpass. You saw him close." Eli swallowed. Not the face, just hood, phone. He moved like he wasn't scared. Ryder nodded once, absorbing it. "He's not a random thug. He's trained. Security, military, whatever." Rain's muffled voice came from inside his helmet. "We go quiet, Ryder. No big ride. Small teams." Mouse cut in at the same time. "Yes, quiet, no thunder, no convoy for them to film." Ryder stared at the plate frame again, then shoved it into his jacket. "Quiet teams," he decided. 4 bikes max per team. Civilians stay back. We don't give them bodies to arrest." Juno grabbed Ryder's sleeve. "And Harper's breathing. We need meds. If she's in a drain, she'll be cold, damp. That'll tighten her chest." Ryder looked at Eli. "Eli, you said there was an inhaler in the backpack." Eli nodded. "Yes." Juno's eyes sharpened. "And it was still in there. Which means they didn't take it with her. Which means either they didn't know, or they didn't care." Ryder's voice went flat. "They didn't care." Mouse's voice softened for the first time. "Ryder, I'm pulling an EMT and an oxygen tank from Station 14. They owe us. I'm not asking." Ryder exhaled hard. "Good." A distant engine hummed, then another. Tires on wet gravel somewhere nearby. Rain stiffened. "We're not alone." Ryder motioned everyone down, pressing them against the cold steel of a container. Eli's breath hitched as he tried to make himself small. Headlights swept across the far end of the lot, slow and searching, cutting between stacks like a blade. A cruiser. Then, the matte black SUV behind it, lights off, sliding through darkness like it belonged there. Eli's heart hammered so loud he was sure they'd hear it. The cruiser stopped. A door opened. Voices carried, distorted by rain. "Unit 12. Check every lane. He won't go far." The SUV's window lowered again. The same smooth voice drifted out. "Find the boy. Leave Ryder alive. If the child dies, it complicates the narrative." Eli felt Juno's hand clamp onto his wrist, grounding him. Ryder's eyes were locked on the SUV now, unblinking, like he was memorizing it for the moment he got to break it. The beam of a flashlight swept closer, skimming the container edges, bright enough to catch breath, to catch fear, to catch a single movement. Eli's shoe scraped barely against wet gravel. The flashlight snapped toward them. "Over here," Unit 12 said, sharp. Ryder's hand shot up, palm out. "Hold." Then he leaned to Eli's ear, voice a whisper that felt like thunder. "When I move, you run with Juno. Don't look back." The flashlight beam slid around the container corner, and a taser clicked alive in the dark. Ryder moved first, not forward, not heroic, sideways. He yanked Rain's bike down by the handlebars and shoved it, hard, so it clattered against the containers like a whole group shifting. The flashlight snapped toward the noise. "Contact!" Unit 12 barked. Ryder seized Eli's hood and Juno's sleeve and drove them the opposite direction, back through a narrow gap between containers where the ground was uneven and slick with oil. Eli stumbled, caught himself, kept running because Ryder's grip wouldn't let him stop. Behind them, the taser popped, a crackle in the rain. Sparks danced against steel. "Go!" Ryder hissed. Juno dragged Eli with a nurse's grip, firm, no panic, while Ryder and Rain peeled off to the right like they were bait. Eli wanted to look back. Juno slapped his shoulder once, hard. "Don't," she whispered. They burst into a service corridor behind the containers, darker, quieter. At the far end, a chain-link fence sagged. Beyond it, a narrow access road and the glow of riverfront cranes in the distance, like skeletal arms lifting the city's future. Juno shoved Eli down behind a stack of pallets. "Breathe," she told him. "In through your nose, out slow." Eli tried. His chest felt too tight, like the rain had crawled inside. A shout echoed behind them, boots on gravel. Unit 12's voice, nearer now, sharp as a whip. "Split! He's here! He's here!" Eli's blood went cold. "They're going to find us." Juno pressed a finger to her lips. Her other hand was on her phone, screen dimmed. She opened Mouse's thread and typed with thumbs that didn't shake. "We're pinned. Lot South End. Need distraction." Then she grabbed Eli's wrist. "We're going to move when they look away," she whispered. "You can do that." Eli nodded, even though he didn't believe it. A flashlight beam stabbed through gaps in the pallets, white and searching. It slid across the wet ground, came closer, then halted. The beam snapped away, pulled by something. A motorcycle engine roared in the distance, then another. Tires screamed like they'd hit metal. Unit 12 shouted, "They're running!" The SUV's smooth voice floated faintly, carried by rain and open space. "Ignore the bikes. Find the boy." Juno's eyes narrowed. "They care about you more than the chase," she whispered to Eli, and that made everything worse. They waited one more beat. Then Juno grabbed Eli and moved. They slipped along the fence line, hugging darkness. Eli's shoes squelched, and every sound felt like a flare. Juno found a loose section where the fence had been cut and poorly repaired, and she pushed him through first. Eli squeezed through and nearly fell. Juno followed, catching herself with a grunt. They were on the access road now. It ran toward riverfront, but also toward the old viaduct, 2 ways out. Juno looked left, then right. "Where's Ryder?" Eli whispered. Juno didn't answer right away. She was listening, reading the night like a medic reads a pulse. Then her phone buzzed in her hand. Mouse. Juno answered without raising it to her ear. "Talk." Mouse's voice came tight and quick. "I got your text. I sent 2 cars to light up the north end. Ryder's still free. He and Rain pulled Unit 12 toward the containers, then doubled back. He's trying to loop to you." Eli's throat burned. "He's going to get hurt." Mouse didn't soften it. "He's already hurt. He doesn't care." Juno's jaw tightened. "Riverfront?" Mouse exhaled hard. "Worse. Cops are stacking near Gate C, and GRS has private security on the fence line. They're setting a stage." A stage. Cameras. Headlines. Eli looked toward the cranes. "That's where she is," he said, and it wasn't a guess anymore. It felt like gravity. Mouse continued. "I found something else. Guardian Response Services has a city contract for critical infrastructure protection at Riverfront. That means they can legally block civilians and delay search if the sheriff signs off." Juno's eyes flashed. "And someone is signing off." Mouse's voice lowered. "There's one person not buying it. Detective Lena Ortiz, Major Crimes. She called me from a burner. She said the deputy, Harlan Voss, is rerouting units away from sewer access and storm drains. Ortiz thinks that's exactly where Harper is." Ryder's voice suddenly cut through on Juno's phone, rough with breath and rain. "Ortiz, put her on," Mouse said. "She can't. She's not on this call, but she's moving." Ryder came in again, closer now, like he'd grabbed a radio. "Juno, where are you?" Juno answered fast. "South Access Road. We got Eli through the fence. Unit 12 and the SUV were in the lot. They're hunting him." "Ryder, stay put. Don't go riverfront yet. It's a trap." Eli shook his head instinctively. "But Harper," Ryder's voice sharpened. "I know. And that's why they want us to rush in loud so they can block us clean." Juno looked at Eli. "He's right," she said. "We go smart." A set of headlights appeared at the far end of the access road, slow, controlled, not frantic, deliberate. Juno pulled Eli into the shadow of a concrete barrier. The cruiser rolled closer, no lights, just the pale wash of headlights. It stopped. A door opened. Unit 12 stepped out. Eli's stomach dropped. How did he keep doing that? How did he keep appearing exactly where Eli tried to escape? Unit 12's silhouette was crisp in the glare. He held a phone in one hand like he was waiting for a cue. Behind him, a second vehicle approached without headlights, the outline low and wide. The matte black SUV. The SUV stopped beside the cruiser like it belonged on duty. Unit 12 lifted his chin slightly, listening. The SUV's window lowered. The smooth voice spoke again, close enough now that Eli could hear the dry confidence in it. "We're running out of patience. Bring the boy." Juno's fingers tightened around Eli's wrist. Eli could feel her pulse through her glove. "Stay still," she whispered, but Unit 12 didn't search blindly. He turned his head slowly, scanning the barriers, the shadows, the fence cuts. His flashlight came on, beam sweeping like a metronome, left to right, right to left. Eli's breath froze in his chest. The beam landed on Juno's boot for half a second. Unit 12's head snapped. "There," he said. Juno moved instantly. She shoved Eli behind the barrier and stood up into the light like she'd decided to become the target. "Officer," she called, voice steady, hands visible. "It's just me. I'm medical." Unit 12 walked toward her. "Where is he?" "I don't know," Juno lied. "He stopped a few feet away." "You do," he said, quiet. "You're choosing the hard way." The SUV's voice cut in, casual. "If she won't cooperate, she can be charged. Interference, harboring." "Pick your statute." Juno's eyes flicked to the SUV window slit. "You talk like you're the law," the voice chuckled. "I'm the part of the law that gets results." Unit 12's flashlight beam slid back toward the barrier. Eli's hands were shaking so hard, his nails clicked against concrete. Juno took a half step forward, blocking the beam with her body. "He's a kid," she said, and for the first time her voice carried anger. "You're threatening a kid while a child is missing." Unit 12's face didn't change. "This is how we save her." Juno's mouth tightened. "No, this is how you bury her." For a beat, nothing moved. Then, the SUV's door opened. A man stepped out, same posture Eli had seen on the overpass. Hood up, shoulders relaxed, like violence was just another tool in his belt. His right hand was low, hidden beside his thigh. Ryder's voice burst through Juno's phone, urgent. "Juno, move, now!" Too late. The hooded man lunged, not at Juno, at the barrier, at Eli's hiding place. Eli scrambled backward, palms slipping on wet concrete. The hooded man's gloved hand grabbed his ankle and yanked hard. Eli's body slid out into the open. Juno screamed and reached for him. Unit 12 grabbed Juno's arm and twisted it behind her back with professional ease, forcing her down to one knee. She gasped but didn't stop fighting. The hooded man hauled Eli upright. Eli kicked, wild, heel catching nothing but air. "Let go!" Eli choked. The hooded man's voice was low. "You should have stayed invisible." The SUV voice spoke, satisfied. "Good, bring him." Eli's eyes locked on Juno's face, furious, desperate, refusing to break. Then, a motorcycle engine detonated in the darkness behind them. Not one, three. Headlights exploded onto the access road, flooding the scene with white glare. The hooded man froze for the first time. Ryder's bike hit the road like a missile, and Ryder James didn't slow down. Ryder's bike hit the access road like a missile, headlight blasting straight into Unit 12's face. The officer flinched, hand rising instinctively to shield his eyes. Ryder didn't aim for bodies, he aimed for space. He threaded the bike between the cruiser and the concrete barrier, close enough that the wind off the handlebars slapped Unit 12's jacket, and the bike's rear peg clipped the officer's shin hard, not to break it, just to steal his balance. Unit 12 staggered. Juno ripped her arm free and surged up, driving her shoulder into him. The move wasn't big, wasn't cinematic. It was a nurse's shove in a hallway when someone is blocking a gurney. It knocked him back exactly one step. That one step was enough. Rain's bike slid in from the opposite angle, tire squealing on wet pavement. Rain cut the engine at the last second and used momentum to swing the bike sideways, creating a steel wall between Eli and the hooded man. The hooded man's grip tightened on Eli's ankle. Eli kicked again, this time connecting. His heel caught the man's wrist bone. The hooded man grunted, grip loosening. Ryder was off his bike before it finished rocking. He crossed the distance in 2 strides and slammed his forearm into the hooded man's throat. Not a punch, a press. It drove the man back against the SUV door hard enough to dent it. The SUV's driver's window jerked up. The smooth voice snapped, no longer polite. "Do it!" Unit 12 recovered fast, reaching for his taser again. Juno saw it and moved without thinking. She grabbed the taser arm and shoved it down, taking the crackle into the wet air as the prongs fired uselessly into the road. Ryder's hand locked on Eli's hoodie and yanked him free. "Run," Ryder said. Eli stumbled toward Juno, who caught him by the shoulders and dragged him behind Rain's bike. The hooded man recovered. His hand went to his jacket. Not a knife, not a gun, a small canister. He snapped it forward and sprayed. A sharp chemical cloud burst into the rain, pepper spray, turning the air into fire. Eli inhaled one lungful and nearly folded. His eyes exploded with tears, his throat locked. Juno slapped her sleeve over Eli's mouth and nose. "Down!" she choked, voice already rasping. She dragged him low, using the bike's frame as cover, forcing him to breathe through fabric. Ryder took the spray full across his face and didn't stop. His head dipped once, then he drove forward blind, shoulder first, slamming the hooded man into the SUV again. Metal thudded. The hooded man's canister flew from his hand and skittered, spraying uselessly into puddles. Unit 12 barked, "Stop! Stop!" No one stopped. Rain kicked his bike upright and revved once, hard, the sound filling the access road like a warning shot. The SUV engine surged. The SUV didn't come at Ryder. It backed up. Smooth and controlled, it reversed away from the mess like a professional retreat, tires cutting a clean arc in the rain. The driver didn't even throw on headlights. Ryder blinked through burning eyes, trying to clear vision with rage alone. He saw the SUV sliding away, saw Unit 12 turning his head after it like he needed permission before he acted. Ryder's voice came out raw. "You let him walk," Unit 12 snapped back. "You're under arrest." Ryder took a step toward him, and Rain did the thing Ryder didn't have time for. Rain grabbed Ryder's vest and yanked him back. "Not here," Rain hissed. "They want you on camera. They want cuffs. They want you to be the story." Mouse's voice cracked through Ryder's radio, frantic. "Ryder, you just lit their stage. Units are converging. Get out, now!" Juno dragged Eli to his feet. Eli couldn't see. Everything was water and burning. "Eli," Juno said hard, close to his ear. "Listen to my voice. You're moving. You're moving right now." Eli nodded, choking, and let her pull him. Ryder didn't look away from Unit 12. "Where is Harper?" he demanded. Unit 12's face stayed flat, but his eyes flicked, one involuntary glance, toward riverfront cranes in the distance. It was tiny. Ryder caught it anyway. Ryder stepped back, grabbed his bike, and spoke into his radio like he was carving it into stone. "All quiet teams. Riverfront Gate C is real, but they're waiting. No loud approach, no mass roll." Then, to Juno and Eli, "Move." They broke. They didn't roar out like a convoy. They ghosted. Rain led, bike lights off, rolling just enough to guide them through service roads and gravel lanes. Ryder followed on foot for the first stretch, pushing his bike beside him because engines were too loud now. Juno kept Eli moving, one hand on his shoulder, the other holding her sleeve over his face. Behind them, the cruiser's siren whooped once, then cut off again. Controlled. Like a dog barked and then was commanded quiet. They ducked through an open loading bay, crossed a warehouse floor that smelled like oil and cold metal, and slipped out a side door into a back alley where dumpsters created shadows deep enough to hide guilt. Eli's eyes streamed. He couldn't stop coughing. Juno pulled a small bottle from her bag and splashed saline into his eyes. "Blink," she said. "Blink hard." It felt like knives at first, then like relief. Eli could see again, not clearly, but enough. Enough to see Ryder's face when he finally wiped Rain off and the anger underneath didn't fade. Enough to see his hands shaking, not from fear, from restraint. Mouse's voice again. "Ryder, the SUV is gone. But Unit 12 just called in assault on an officer and kidnapping attempt by biker gang. Media is already rolling. Someone tipped a reporter." Ryder's laugh was short and empty. "Of course they did." Rain spat on the ground. "They're writing the headline while she's still missing." Juno looked at Ryder. "We need proof. Hard proof, not just instincts." Ryder reached inside his jacket and pulled out the plate frame. "We have a fleet company name," he said. "We have footage of the SUV blocking the van. We have a security company patch tied to Riverfront. That's proof." Mouse cut in. "And we have a problem. The gas station footage. Police are there now. They're seizing it." Juno's eyes narrowed. "Seizing or burying?" Mouse didn't answer, which was an answer. Rain's phone buzzed, and he glanced down. "Des," he said, voice tight. "What about him?" Ryder asked. Rain's eyes lifted. "They're charging him. Obstruction, resisting, and they're saying he interfered with a child abduction investigation." Ryder's jaw flexed. "They're turning the Ravens into the suspect pool." Eli swallowed. "Because of me." Ryder's head snapped toward him. "No," Ryder said, immediate. "Because you broke their timing. They can't control a city that's awake." Juno's phone rang from an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Juno." A woman's voice came through, low and fast. "This is Detective Lena Ortiz. You don't know me. You shouldn't trust me. But if you want that girl alive, you'll meet me in 5 minutes at the service stairs under Pier 9. Come alone. No patches visible." Juno's spine went rigid. "How did you get this number?" Ortiz didn't waste breath. "Because someone inside the sheriff's building is feeding your movements to Guardian Response. And because I've watched 3 units get redirected away from storm drain access. That's not incompetence. That's intention." Ryder leaned closer, eyes burning. "Ortiz," he said when Juno put it on speaker. "Talk." Ortiz's voice tightened. "The deputy in charge, Harlan Voss, he's rerouting. He's blocking sewer maps. He's claiming infrastructure risk. It's a cover." Mouse's voice cut in, harsh. "Ortiz, how do we know you're not part of it?" Ortiz didn't argue. "You don't. That's why you meet me with your own eyes. Pier 9, 5 minutes. If I'm lying, you walk away. If I'm telling the truth, you'll want what I have." Ryder's gaze flicked to Eli. "You stay with Juno," Ryder said. Eli's chest tightened. "No, Ryder cut him off gently but firm. "You already did enough." Juno grabbed Ryder's sleeve. "If this is a trap." "It might be," Ryder said. "But sitting still is worse." Rain shook his head. "I'll go with you." Ortiz's voice sharpened. "Alone means alone. If I see a second shadow, I disappear, and you lose what I'm bringing." Ryder stared at the rain-slick alley. He made a decision. Fine. He slid his vest off, folded it, and handed it to Rain like it was a weapon he didn't want to surrender. Mouse said, Ryder. "I know." He looked at Eli one last time. "Listen," he said, voice lowered. "If I don't come back in 10 minutes, Rain takes you both to Mouse and you tell her everything you saw. Plate fragment, patch, the van door, all of it." Eli nodded, throat tight. Ryder pulled his hood up and walked into the rain with nothing on him that screamed steel ravens, just a man moving fast toward the waterline. Break. Pier 9 was a skeleton of concrete and rusted railings lit by sickly yellow lamps. Water slapped the pylons below like impatient hands. The service stairs under the pier were narrow and damp, the kind of place nobody went unless they wanted privacy. Ryder descended alone. Halfway down, he saw her. Detective Ortiz stood in the shadow of the stairs, jacket soaked, hair pulled back, face tight with exhaustion. She didn't look like someone staging a trap. She looked like someone who'd been losing sleep for years and finally found a reason to spend it. Her eyes flicked to Ryder's empty hands. "Good," she said. Ryder didn't soften. "Talk." Ortiz reached into her jacket and pulled out a folded sheet protected by plastic. She held it up, not offering it yet. "Storm drain access points under riverfront," she said. "Old system, big enough to crawl. Some sections connect to the redevelopment site's utility trench. That's where I'd hide a child if I wanted time and silence." Ryder's throat tightened. "How do you know she's there?" Ortiz's jaw clenched. "Because a city crew logged an unauthorized entry alarm at Gate C last night, and it got wiped from the incident list. And because a private security truck logged at the same gate, GRS, and Voss signed the authorization." Ryder's hands curled into fists. "Voss." Ortiz nodded. "I can't arrest him alone, not yet, but I can give you what he's trying to keep from you." She stepped closer and finally offered the sheet. Ryder reached for it. A shadow moved behind Ortiz, too smooth, too quiet for the rain. Ortiz's eyes flicked up, sharp, and her mouth opened, and a hand clamped over Ryder's wrist from the dark, yanking hard. The hand on Ryder's wrist was gloved and strong. It didn't yank him toward the street. It yanked him down, toward the underside of the pier, toward the darker stairwell where the lamps didn't reach. Ryder twisted hard, trying to free his arm without giving up balance. He caught a glimpse of a hood, a familiar posture, calm shoulders, trained movement, no panic. Ortiz reacted faster than Ryder expected. She didn't scream. She didn't freeze. She lunged. Her forearm slammed into the attacker's elbow joint, forcing the grip to loosen. Then she drove her knee upward, aiming for the attacker's thigh. It wasn't a cinematic kick. It was a tactical shot meant to steal a leg. The attacker absorbed it and still didn't break. That was the terrifying part. Ortiz's jaw tightened. "Move," she hissed at Ryder. Ryder ripped his wrist free and stepped back, but the attacker slid with him like a shadow. Another figure emerged from behind a concrete pillar, then another. Quiet, rain-dark silhouettes that filled the stairs without making noise. Ortiz's eyes flicked over them and her face hardened. "3," she muttered. "Of course." Ryder's chest went hot. "GRS." One of the men didn't deny it. He just spoke into a throat mic Ryder hadn't noticed. "Packages confirmed." Ortiz shoved the plastic-wrapped map into Ryder's chest. "Take it," she said. "Run." Ryder didn't move. "Not leaving you." Ortiz's mouth tightened. "If you stay, she dies. Go." The closest attacker moved again, fast, hand dipping to his belt. Ryder expected a knife. It was a zip tie, a thick one, industrial grade. Ryder's stomach dropped. Not murder, capture. He swung first, elbow into the attacker's collarbone, then a shove that forced the man half a step back. Ryder tried to pivot up the stairs to daylight. A second attacker blocked the exit like a wall. Ortiz reached into her jacket and flashed a badge as if it was a weapon. "Major crimes," she snapped. "Back off." A laugh came from the darkness, soft. "You're alone, detective." Then a burst of chemical mist hit Ryder's face. Not pepper spray, different, sweeter, closer to solvent. His eyes watered instantly. His throat seized. He tried to inhale and got nothing but burning. He staggered. Hands grabbed him. Zip ties bit into his wrists, tight, brutal, immediate. The men moved with practiced efficiency, turning him, pinning him against the railing, pulling his arms behind him until his shoulders screamed. Ortiz lunged again and caught one attacker with a hard palm strike to the nose. The man's head snapped back, blood mixing with rain. But the other two didn't even pause. One grabbed Ortiz by the back of her collar and slammed her against the concrete. Ortiz gasped, then tried to drive her elbow into his ribs. He caught it. He leaned close and spoke low enough Ryder barely heard. "You're done." Ortiz's eyes flicked to Ryder, desperate and furious. "Riverfront drains," she rasped. "Gate C, utility trench." The man holding her slammed her again, cutting her words off. Ryder tried to surge forward. A boot hooked his ankle and kicked it out. He went down hard on wet concrete, shoulder first. Pain flared white. Before he could roll, a knee pressed between his shoulder blades and a hand forced his face toward the ground. "Don't fight," the smooth voice said, the SUV voice. Ryder turned his head enough to see him stepping out of the dark. Same clean-shaven man, same calm eyes. No hood, no urgency. Just an administrator of outcomes. "You're making it harder," the man added, almost kindly. Ryder spit rain and blood. "Where is she?" The man crouched so only Ryder could hear. "Alive for now. That's the point. We need time." Ryder's vision blurred from the chemical. "Time for what?" "For the city to accept the story we give it." Ryder's laugh came out broken. "You're going to blame us." The man didn't argue. "You brought a homeless witness into it. You pulled a detective off book. You forced our hand." Ryder's wrists strained against the ties. "You took a child." The man's expression didn't change. "We relocated her." Ryder tried to lunge again. The knee in his back crushed him down. Ortiz, pinned against the wall, fought to keep her eyes open. Ryder saw her lips form one word through the rain. Eli. Then the attacker holding her drove something into her neck, a small syringe or injector. Ortiz's body went rigid for a second, then sagged, conscious but heavy, like her muscles had quit on her. Ryder's stomach turned. "No." The smooth man stood. "She'll wake up," he said, like it was a courtesy. "Eventually." He nodded once. The hooded man, same one from the overpass, grabbed Ryder under the arms and hauled him up as if Ryder weighed nothing. Ryder's boots scraped the stairs. The plastic-wrapped map slid from his jacket and fell, fluttering down a step. Ryder tried to kick it toward Ortiz. A boot stomped it flat and crushed the plastic sleeve. The smooth man leaned down, picked the map up, and tucked it inside his coat. "Can't have that," he murmured. They dragged Ryder toward the waterline under the pier where the SUV was parked out of sight from the road. The world narrowed into rain, concrete, and the sound of Ryder's own breathing fighting the chemical burn. As they shoved him toward the rear door, Ryder caught one last glimpse of Ortiz slumped against the wall, eyes still open, lips moving without sound. Ryder forced his voice out anyway, hoarse and furious. "If she dies," the smooth man cut him off, almost bored. "She won't, not yet." The door opened. Darkness swallowed Ryder. Break. Across town, in the warehouse alley, Juno paced small circles to keep warm, eyes locked on Rain's phone. Eli sat on an overturned crate, hands shaking, replaying the gas station footage in his head until it felt like it might burn a hole through him. Rain checked the time again. 10 minutes, he muttered. "It's been 10. Mouse's voice came through his phone, taut. "Any word?" "No," Rain said. "Nothing." Juno's jaw tightened. "Something's wrong." Eli swallowed, voice small. He said, "If he doesn't come back in 10 minutes, Rain looked at him. "We move," he said. Juno grabbed her bag. "To Mouse." Eli stood too fast and nearly fell. "And Harper? We can't just—" "We don't stop searching," Juno said, locking eyes with him. "We change how we search." They slipped into the rain, moving through back streets, staying off main roads. Twice they saw cruisers idling at intersections, lights off. Once they saw the matte black SUV far down a cross street, gliding, then vanishing. By the time they reached Mouse's spot, an auto body shop with the doors half closed and the lights low, the city felt like it was holding its breath. Inside, riders and civilians crowded around maps and phones. The atmosphere wasn't loud anymore. It was focused, quiet anger. A war room built out of oil-stained concrete. Mouse looked up when Juno and Eli came in. Her eyes went straight to Eli, then to Rain. "Where's Ryder?" Rain shook his head once. Mouse's face tightened. She didn't ask for details first. She just lifted her radio and spoke into it like a blade. "All quiet teams, status check. Ryder is dark. I repeat, Ryder is dark." Replies crackled back. Negative sightings, no contact, nothing. Eli's throat closed. "It's my fault," he whispered. Mouse stepped in close, voice low. "No," she said. "It's your value. That's why they want you gone." Juno leaned in. "Ortiz called," she said. "Pier 9. She had storm drain maps. Ryder went alone." Mouse's eyes narrowed. "Pier 9? She turned to a rider at the back. "Scout Team 3, go Pier 9 now. Don't engage, just eyes. If you see Ortiz, if you see anything, report." The rider nodded and vanished into the rain. Mouse swung back to the room. "We don't have Ryder," she said, "so we stopped waiting for Ryder's permission." Eli's stomach dropped. Mouse pointed at the riverfront redevelopment grid on the wall. "Gate C, utility trench, storm drains. We go in." Juno's voice went tight. "Cops are staging there." Mouse nodded. "Which is why we don't go through the gate. We go under." She tapped a section of the city map, old service tunnels and drainage access points that fed toward riverfront. Eli stared. "How do you know those?" Mouse didn't look away. "Because the city forgets what it built. But mechanics don't. Tow drivers don't. People who live under bridges don't." Her eyes flicked to Eli when she said it. "We need a kid-sized entry," Mouse continued. "Some access grates are narrow. Adults can't fit." Silence hit the room. Eli felt it land on him before anyone said his name. Juno's hand clamped onto his shoulder. "No," she said immediately. Mouse didn't push yet. She just spoke carefully. "I'm not putting him in a drain." Eli swallowed. His voice came out hoarse. "If Harper is in there, she's 8. I'm small too." Juno turned on him. "Eli, I'm not saying alone," Eli said fast. "Just, I can fit where you can't." Mouse stared at him, calculating, not emotionless, controlled. "We'll decide in minutes," she said. "First we confirm Ryder and Ortiz." A radio crackled. "Scout Team 3. Mouse snatched it up. "Talk." A rider's voice came through, breathless. "Mouse. Pier 9 is hot, unmarked SUV seen leaving 2 minutes ago. We found Ortiz under the service stairs. She's alive but sedated. Ryder's gone." The shop went dead silent. Eli's chest tightened until it hurt. Mouse closed her eyes for half a second, then opened them like she'd just chosen violence in her own way. "All right," she said. "Now we do this without them. Quiet teams to drain access. EMT with oxygen. Juno, your medical lead. Rain, your runner. Eli," She paused. Everyone in the room looked at him. Eli felt the weight of it like a hand on his neck. Mouse finished, voice steady. Eli, you stay glued to Juno. You don't move unless I say so. Eli nodded, but inside, something else was rising, an ugly certainty. Harper was in the dark, under riverfront, and someone had just removed Ryder from the board. The drainage access wasn't a tunnel at first. It was a mouth. A rusted grate behind an abandoned pump station, half hidden by weeds and a chain-link fence with a hole cut clean through it. Someone had cut it a long time ago, someone who knew the city's underside better than the people who ran it. Mouse stood over it with a flashlight that looked too small for what they were about to do. Rain held bolt cutters. Juno had an oxygen bag and a sealed medication kit. Two riders stood watch on the service road, engines off, listening for tires. Eli stared down into the black. The smell hit him first, wet concrete, algae, old oil, a cold metallic tang that made his stomach twist. Mouse kept her voice low. This feed line connects to Riverfront's old storm system. Ortiz's maps are gone, but the city's bones don't change. We follow the water grade. We follow sound. Juno checked the oxygen gauge again, like numbers could fight fear. If she's been down there all night, she said, she'll be cold, dehydrated, and tight-chested. We move fast, but we move careful. Rain leaned closer to Mouse. Cops? Mouse's eyes flicked to the street. They're staging at Gate C cameras, barricades. They think the threat is on the surface. Eli swallowed. What about the SUV? Mouse's mouth tightened. If they're smart, they're watching the drains too. That's why we're not bringing 20 bikes. That's why we're not loud. She looked at Eli. Stay on Juno's shoulder. No wandering. No hero moves. Eli nodded. Mouse nodded back once, then pointed at the grate. Cut it. Rain's bolt cutters bit into rusted bolts with a muffled crunch. The grate shivered, then lifted enough to slide aside. Cold air breathed out of the opening like the city exhaled. Juno went first, lowering herself down carefully. Rain followed, then Eli, then Mouse. The ladder rungs were slick and uneven. Eli climbed down with his heart in his throat, trying not to imagine what down meant if the ladder gave out. His shoes hit shallow water. It was ankle-deep and freezing. Mouse's flashlight beam carved a narrow path, concrete walls stained black, graffiti half erased, stray trash caught in eddies. The drain was wide enough for two people to walk side by side here, but it narrowed in places, turning into a ribbed pipe that looked like it could swallow you whole. They moved in silence, except for water and breath. After 50 yards, Mouse stopped and killed her light for a second. They all froze. Up ahead, faint through concrete, came a vibration, traffic above, distant, heavy. Then, something else beneath it, a muffled clank, not water, not echo, metal on metal. Juno's eyes widened. She mouthed, someone. Mouse clicked her light on again, beam steady, and motioned them forward, slower now. They rounded a bend. The tunnel split. One branch ran straight, the other angled down and narrowed, water trickling faster as if it wanted to pull you. Mouse knelt, ran her fingers along the concrete lip, then lifted her hand to show a pale yellow smear. Construction dust. Eli's stomach tightened. This is it, Mouse nodded. Gate C is above this branch, Rain whispered, barely sound. How do we know they didn't just dump her stuff here? Juno answered quietly. Because if she's alive, she's making noise, and the longer she's down here, the worse it gets. They took the narrow branch. The ceiling lowered, the walls tightened, the water deepened to mid-calf. Eli's hands brushed damp concrete on both sides now, and he hated how the tunnel seemed to lean in. Then they heard it. A sound so thin it could have been water, until it wasn't. A cough, small, weak, human. Juno stopped dead. Harper, she whispered, not calling out, just naming it like a prayer. Mouse lifted her hand. Hold. They went forward, inch by inch. Another sound, two tiny sobs that tried to stay quiet and failed. Juno's voice went gentle, just loud enough to carry. Sweetheart, Harper, my name is Juno. We're here to help you. The sobs cut off instantly. Silence. Then a tiny voice shaking from somewhere deeper in the dark. Don't take me back. Eli's throat closed. Harper, he said softly without thinking. A pause. Then the voice returned, smaller. Who are you? I'm Eli, he whispered. I found your backpack. Your dad is looking for you." At the word dad, a choked sound came out of the dark, half sob, half breath. Mouse motioned them forward faster now, and the tunnel opened into a low chamber, an overflow junction with 3 pipes feeding into it like arteries. And in the far corner, on a ledge above the waterline, a small shape curled into itself. A little girl. Hair stuck to her face in wet strands, knees hugged to chest, a thin jacket that was too big for her, purple lining torn at the shoulder. Harper. Her eyes were wide and glossy, reflecting the flashlight like an animal's. Her lips were pale, her hands shook uncontrollably. Juno waded toward her slowly, palms open. "Hi, baby," she said, voice steady and warm. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm medical. I'm going to help you breathe, okay?" Harper flinched away until her back hit the wall. "They said," she tried, then coughed hard. The cough turned into wheezing. Juno's whole body snapped into action. "She's tight," she said to Mouse. "Oxygen." Mouse and Rain moved at once. Rain handed the oxygen bag forward. Mouse kept the light steady and scanned the chamber edges, looking for wires, cameras, footsteps, anything. Eli stayed where he was, not too close, afraid he'd scare her. He kept his voice soft. "Harper, your dad, Ryder, he's coming." Harper blinked at the name like it hurt. "Is he mad?" Eli swallowed. "No, he's scared." Harper's breathing hitched again. Her wheeze sounded like air trying to squeeze through a straw. Juno fit the mask over Harper's face gently. "Breathe with me. In, out, in," Harper tried. Her chest barely rose. Juno looked up, urgent now. "We need a bronchodilator, now." Eli's stomach dropped. "The inhaler, it was in the backpack." Juno's eyes flashed anger, not at Eli, at whoever did this. Of course it was. Mouse's radio kept low, crackled once, static, then a whisper from the surface team. Mouse lifted it to her mouth. "Talk." A rider's voice came through, strained. "Mouse, cops just moved off Gate C, like they got a call. They're shifting south." But a pause, a swallow. "Black SUV just entered the riverfront site, heading toward the utility trench." Mouse's face went cold. She looked at the tunnel behind them. "They're coming," she said. Juno didn't look up. "I don't care. I need meds." Mouse snapped into motion. "Rain, backtrack, full sprint. Get the inhaler from the evidence bag in the shop, or any albuterol from the EMT, whatever. Go." Rain hesitated. "I can't leave you." "Go," Mouse said, and her voice didn't allow argument. Rain turned and ran into the tunnel, splashing hard, disappearing around the bend. Harper's eyes rolled slightly, fear and oxygen fighting inside her. She tugged weakly at Juno's sleeve. "Please, don't let them." "I won't," Juno said, voice fierce but soft. "I won't." Mouse scanned the chamber ceiling. A faint vibration traveled through the concrete now, heavier than traffic. Steps above, maybe, or a vehicle over a grate. Eli felt the hair rise on his arms. "They know," he whispered. Mouse nodded once. They always knew. Then, from the tunnel they'd come through, a new sound broke the water echo. Not rain, a bootstep, slow, deliberate, and a flashlight beam, thin and white, sliced around the curve of the pipe. Mouse raised her hand and killed her own light instantly, plunging them into darkness except for the faint glow of Juno's oxygen gauge. Harper's wheezing filled the black, and the flashlight kept getting closer. Mouse killed her light and the world became breath, water, and the thin hiss of oxygen. Harper's wheeze scraped the dark like sandpaper. Juno kept one hand on the mask, the other braced on the ledge so she wouldn't slip and jolt the girl. Eli stood frozen knee-deep in water, eyes useless now, listening to the tunnel. The Chujoy flashlight beam crept closer, painting the wet concrete in a slow sweep. Not frantic, not searching, approaching. Mouse's voice was barely a thread. "Nobody speaks." A bootstep splashed, then another. The light paused at the chamber mouth like the person was letting their eyes adjust. Eli's stomach twisted because he could feel the confidence in the pause. Then, a voice drifted in, soft and controlled. "Harper." Harper jolted so hard the oxygen mask shifted. Juno steadied it instantly, whispering, "Shh, baby, breathe." The voice didn't sound like Ryder. It wasn't frantic. It wasn't broken. It sounded like someone practicing kindness. "We're here to take you home," the voice said. Harper's eyes, huge in the faint glow of the gauge, locked on the tunnel mouth. Her lips trembled. "No," she breathed. Mouse's hand tightened on the flashlight she wasn't using. Eli saw her outline shift, readying. Juno murmured to Harper, "Look at me. Just me. Breathe with me." The voice continued, closer now. "Harper, your father sent us. He's waiting. Come on, sweetheart." Harper shook her head, weak but definite. "You're lying." Silence. Then a slight laugh, like amusement at a child's stubbornness. "Smart," the voice said, "but it won't matter." The beam swept the chamber and caught the oxygen bag for half a second. The light snapped to it, then to Juno's silhouette. "There," the voice said, and the tone dropped. No more pretending. A figure stepped into the chamber. Dark rain gear, hood up, shoulder posture Eli recognized instantly. The overpass man. The one who moved like fear didn't exist. Behind him, a second light hovered at the tunnel mouth, held higher. Cover. Mouse moved. She didn't charge. She flung a handful of gravel and sludge from the water straight into the hooded man's beam. The light exploded into a smear. At the same moment, she snapped her own light on, full power, directly into his eyes. The hooded man flinched for the first time. Mouse's voice cut through, low and lethal. "Back out, now." The hooded man recovered fast, turning his head just enough to reduce the glare. His hand dipped toward his belt, zip ties. Mouse didn't wait. She waded forward and drove her shoulder into him, slamming him sideways into the wall with a wet concrete thud. The impact made the chamber ring. The second light at the tunnel mouth darted forward. Juno's face tightened. "Eli!" she snapped. "Get behind me, now!" Eli moved, splashing, but his eyes kept flicking to Harper. Harper was shaking, breath shallow, terrified. Mouse and the hooded man grappled in the water, fast, brutal, controlled, not brawling, fighting for leverage. The hooded man tried to twist Mouse's arm behind her. Mouse slammed her heel down on his boot and drove her elbow back into his ribs. He grunted, but stayed upright. Then the second figure entered the chamber fully, not hooded. A man in a city worker jacket, reflective strips like he belonged near pipes, clean, calm. His flashlight stayed steady, and his voice was the same smooth one from the SUV. "We have a child in medical distress," he said, like he was speaking to a meeting. "Step aside." Mouse spat water. "Go to hell." The smooth man's eyes slid to Harper. "Harper," he said gently, "you can stop being brave now." Harper's lips parted, then she wheezed hard, a dry, tight sound. Juno's body went rigid. "She's tiring," she snapped to Mouse without looking away from Harper. "She's losing the fight." The smooth man heard it and used it. He took one slow step toward the ledge. Mouse saw and shifted, trying to block, but the hooded man grabbed her vest and yanked her back into the water. Mouse stumbled and her light swung away for a heartbeat. That heartbeat was enough. The smooth man raised his hand, not a weapon, a syringe, a small injector pen. Eli's blood froze. Juno lunged to shield Harper, but she was pinned by position, one foot slipping on the ledge, one hand holding the oxygen mask. The smooth man's voice stayed calm. "She needs to be quiet. You're agitating her." He moved in. Eli moved too. He didn't think. He just did the only thing his body understood. He grabbed the oxygen bag strap and swung it like a weight, hard into the smooth man's wrist. Plastic struck bone. The injector pen flew and clattered into the water with a tiny splash. The smooth man's head snapped toward Eli, surprise flickering for the first time. "You." Eli's heart hammered so loud it drowned the water. His hands shook, but he didn't step back. "Don't touch her," he rasped. The smooth man's expression turned cold. "You keep inserting yourself." He reached for Eli. Juno's voice cut sharp. "Eli, down!" Eli dropped. A flashlight beam from the tunnel mouth suddenly flared brighter, and a third voice roared from deeper in the pipe, distant but unmistakable. "Move!" Engines, not above ground, too close, too echoing. A motorcycle engine screamed somewhere behind the tunnel bend, like someone had brought thunder into the city's bones. The hooded man's head snapped toward the tunnel, a flicker of calculation. Mouse used it. She jammed her forearm under his chin and shoved him backward into the wall, then twisted free and surged toward Harper's ledge again. The smooth man stepped back a half step, eyes narrowing. The engine sound grew louder, insane, impossible in a drain. Then lights. Two bright beams appeared down the tunnel, bouncing wildly, reflecting off water like strobe. Rain, but not alone. A second figure ran beside him in the water, shoulders hunched, moving like pain didn't matter. Eli's throat tightened as the figure came into the chamber light. Ryder. Face scraped, wrists raw, shirt soaked, eyes like a man who had crawled out of a cage. Ryder didn't stop. He slammed into the smooth man's shoulder first and drove him into the concrete wall so hard the flashlight flew and skittered into the water. The smooth man grunted, breath punched out. Ryder grabbed him by the collar and shoved his face close. "Where is she?" Ryder growled, then saw Harper on the ledge, oxygen mask on, shaking. His whole body changed in 1 second. He released the smooth man like he was nothing and waded to Harper, hands trembling, voice breaking. "Harp, baby, I'm here." Harper's eyes fixed on him, disbelief battling exhaustion. "Dad?" she whispered, barely audible. Ryder swallowed hard. Yeah, it's me." Harper's lips trembled and a sob tried to come out but turned into a wheeze. Ryder looked at Juno, panic exploding. "Help her, please!" "I am," Juno said, voice fierce. "She needs albuterol. Rain ran for it." Rain was already digging in a waterproof pouch. "I got one," he said, breath ragged. "From the EMT. Not hers, but it'll work." He tossed it to Juno. Juno snapped the inhaler into a spacer, pressed it to Harper's mouth under the oxygen mask edge. "Breathe in when I tell you," she said. Harper's chest fluttered. "Now," Juno ordered. Harper tried. The first attempt was shallow. "Again," Juno said, steady. "Again, sweetheart." Harper drew a tighter breath. The wheeze eased a fraction, then another fraction. Ryder held her hand like he could anchor her lungs by force. Behind them, Mouse turned back toward the tunnel mouth. The hooded man was already retreating, splashing backward, dragging the smooth man with him. The smooth man's eyes locked on Ryder one last time, cold and furious. "This ends with you," he said. Ryder didn't look up. "It ends with my daughter breathing." Mouse raised her radio. "Surface team," she hissed. "They're pulling back through the drain line. Intercept at the pump station. Do not let them vanish." Static. Then a reply. Tight, urgent. "Copy." Ryder lifted Harper carefully, cradling her against his chest. She was light, too light. Juno kept the mask on her face, walking with them, voice constant. "In, out. Good. In, out." Harper clung weakly to Ryder's jacket, fingers shaking. "I thought you wouldn't find me." Ryder's voice cracked. "Never. Not in any world." They moved back down the tunnel, faster now but controlled, lights bouncing, water splashing. Behind them, echoes of footsteps faded, retreating. As they neared the ladder access, new sounds filtered down from above. Sirens, lots of them. But mixed into the sirens was another sound, dozens of motorcycle engines revving, not charging, just present, like the city had formed a wall. When they reached the ladder, Mouse looked up through the grate. Red and blue strobed across the wet metal, and above the opening, a voice boomed through a megaphone. "Come out with your hands up! You are trespassing on a secured site!" Ryder froze, Harper in his arms, oxygen mask hissing softly. Juno's face tightened. "They're waiting." Mouse's eyes went hard. "They're not here for the child," she said. "They're here for the story." Ryder looked down at Harper, then at Eli. Eli's throat was tight, but he forced the words out. "They'll take her again." Ryder didn't answer. He lifted his radio, voice low and lethal. "Mouse," he said, "bring the city." And above them, on the other side of the grate, boots shifted into a tighter ring. Someone started unbolting the cover from the outside. The grate above them shuddered as bolts squealed loose from the outside. Harper's oxygen mask hissed against Ryder's chest. Her fingers were hooked into his jacket like she was afraid the tunnel would swallow her back the second she let go. Ryder kept one arm locked around her, the other hand braced against the concrete wall, ready to shove upward if anyone tried to drop something down. Mouse killed her flashlight. "Lights off," she whispered. "They want faces." Up above, the megaphone barked again, louder, rehearsed. "You are trespassing on a secured site. Come out now." Juno leaned close to Ryder. "Her breathing is stabilizing," she said softly. "But she can't handle panic. If they yank her, if they shout in her face, she'll crash again." Ryder's jaw flexed. They won't touch her. Mouse's voice was cold. They will if the camera's rolling. That's the point. Eli stared up at the narrow square of metal and the strobing red-blue light spilling through gaps. He could hear boots shifting, radios clicking, the clink of a bolt tossed aside. He could picture Unit 12 up there, straight-backed, ready to read a script. And behind him, somewhere out of sight, the matte black SUV's people watching for the moment this became a headline. The grate lifted a few inches. Rain moved instantly, stepping under it just enough to block the opening with his shoulders, not exposing his face. "You want someone? Talk to me," he shouted up. A flashlight beam knifed down, trying to catch eyes. Rain angled his helmet so the light reflected off it and blinded the person above. "Step away!" a voice snapped. Unit 12. "This is a secured operation!" Mouse hissed to Ryder. "Not yet!" Ryder's radio vibrated in his hand. He keyed it once, low. "Now," he said. For 3 seconds, nothing changed. Then, the city answered. It didn't sound like one engine. It sounded like the ground deciding to hum. Dozens of bikes, spread out, approaching from different angles. Side streets, access lanes, even the gravel service road that wasn't supposed to exist. Not charging the line, surrounding it. Filling every gap the cops used to funnel people. Above, voices stumbled over each other. Where are they coming from?" "Hold the perimeter." Mouse's phone buzzed, and she didn't even look at the screen. She already knew what it meant. Every rider, every tow driver, every neighbor with a car and a horn had moved when the word went out. Ryder tightened his grip on Harper. She stirred, eyes half opening, confused. "Dad?" she whispered. "I'm here," Ryder said into her hair. "Listen to my voice." Juno whispered to Harper, steady and warm. "You're doing great. Keep breathing. In, out." Above, the megaphone faltered, then tried again. "Disperse. Disperse immediately." A different voice cut through it, amplified by a phone speaker held too close. Mouse's voice, coming from above now, not below. She'd sent someone with her live stream. "Everybody filming," Mouse's voice boomed from the surface. "Every phone on, every angle. If they touch the child, the whole city sees it." The boots on the grate shifted again, not as confident. The sound of metal scraping stopped. The cover didn't lift any farther. Unit 12's voice snapped down into the opening. "Bring the girl up." Ryder's voice rose for the first time, cutting through the tunnel like a blade. "You come down." Silence. Then, Unit 12, tight. "That's not how this works." Ryder's reply was calm in a way that scared Eli. "It is today. My daughter's coming out with medical first. No cuffs, no hands on her. You want to arrest someone? You can arrest me after she's in an ambulance." Unit 12 hesitated, and Eli could feel the city leaning on that hesitation, squeezing it. From above, another voice shouted, civilian, furious, amplified by many. "Let the kid out." Then another, "We saw the van footage." Then another, "Where's Ryder? Where's the detective?" That last one hit hard. Ortiz. Mouse's surface team was already pushing the truth out, not waiting for permission. Juno looked at Ryder. "We need a clean lane," she murmured. Mouse answered without looking at them, listening to her radio like a heartbeat. "You'll get it." She keyed her mic. "Ortiz is alive, sedated, major crimes. She's a witness, and I want EMT to the grate now." A new voice came over Mouse's channel, unfamiliar, steady. "This is Detective Ortiz." Eli's eyes widened. Ortiz sounded groggy but focused, like someone fighting through fog to aim a weapon. "Deputy Harlan Voss has compromised this search. Guardian Response Services has been operating as an unauthorized force in a missing child case. If you obstruct medical care, you are on record." Above them, the atmosphere snapped. Because that wasn't a biker talking. That was a detective throwing her badge into the air like a flare. Unit 12's voice turned sharp. "Who authorized you to speak?" Ortiz cut him off. "Shut up and clear the lane." A beat. Then the sound everyone needed. The scrape of boots stepping back, the clink of a gate latch opening, someone yelling, "Make room! EMT through!" The strobing light above shifted away from the opening. Mouse motioned. "Now! Slow! Careful!" Rain climbed first, pushing the grate wider with both hands. He kept his body blocking the view until the opening was fully clear. Juno went next, oxygen bag first, then her shoulders, then she swung herself up and immediately turned to form a shield. Ryder lifted Harper up into Juno's arms first, the way you hand over something breakable. Harper whimpered, eyes fluttering, but Juno's voice stayed warm and constant. "I've got you, baby. You're safe. You're safe." Then Ryder climbed up. Eli followed, last. He emerged into chaos held back by willpower, bikes parked in a wide ring, civilians standing shoulder to shoulder with phones up, tow trucks angled like barricades, and cops pressed into a line that wasn't sure it still owned the street. An ambulance idled 10 yards away, doors open. Juno moved Harper straight into the medic's hands. Oxygen continued. Inhaler again through the spacer. The medic nodded, fast and serious. "We can stabilize her, let's go." Ryder started to climb into the ambulance with her. Unit 12 stepped forward instantly. "Ryder, James." A wall of engines revved at once, not a charge, a warning. Mouse stepped into the open where everyone could see her face. She held her phone up, live, and pointed it directly at Unit 12. "You touch him now," Mouse said, voice steady, "and everyone sees you put a father in cuffs while his child is on oxygen." Unit 12's eyes flicked to the phones, hundreds of them, then to the ambulance, then, involuntarily, to the matte black SUV parked further back near the fence line, partially hidden. That glance was small, but it was everything, because cameras caught it. Eli saw a civilian zoom in on the SUV. Another person shouted, "That's the same SUV from the gas station." A tow driver yelled, "I got the footage saved." Someone else screamed, "GRS logo, look!" The smooth man from the SUV wasn't visible now, but the vehicle sat there like a confession. Ryder climbed into the ambulance with Harper anyway. He didn't ask. He didn't wait. He just went. Juno stayed inside with them. The doors slammed. The ambulance pulled away under escort. 2 civilian cars in front, 2 behind, like a community-built shield. Mouse turned back to the crowd. "Nobody moves toward the cops," she called. "We win by not giving them a fight." Then she looked straight at Unit 12. "You want arrests? Start with the people who put an 8-year-old in a storm drain." Ortiz appeared at the edge of the crowd, supported by an officer who looked like he hated what he'd been ordered to do. Her face was pale, but her eyes were sharp. She lifted a hand and pointed, slow, for the cameras. "Deputy Harlan Voss," she said, voice loud enough to carry. "You're relieved." A murmur rippled like electricity. Unit 12's face tightened. "That's not your—" Ortiz cut him off again. "It is when I've already forwarded the incident logs you tried to wipe. It is when I have witnesses. It is when the public is filming you right now." A city doesn't usually turn in one moment, but Eli felt it turn. Because the lie needed silence, and tonight the city refused to be quiet. Break. Hours later, Harper slept under warm blankets in a hospital room. Oxygen turned down, color returning to her cheeks. Ryder sat in the chair beside her bed, hands still shaking, staring at her chest rising and falling like it was the only thing that mattered in the universe. Juno stood in the hallway with Ortiz, giving a clean statement, facts, times, locations, the gas station footage, the drain access, the injector pen dropped in the water, the zip ties, the SUV. Ortiz didn't promise miracles, she promised process, and she promised that this time, the process would be public. In the waiting area, Eli sat alone until someone approached and sat beside him. Mouse. She didn't ask where his parents were. She didn't ask why he'd been under a bridge. She just slid a cup of hot soup into his hands and said, "You did what most people wouldn't. You didn't walk away." Eli stared at the steam. "They wanted me," he whispered. Mouse nodded. "Yeah, because you're proof, and proof is dangerous." Eli's throat tightened. "Am I in trouble?" Mouse looked at him like he was a person, not a problem. "Not if we do this right." Break. 2 weeks later, the city looked different, not cleaner, not kinder, but awake. Guardian Response's riverfront contract was frozen. The matte black SUV was photographed from every angle until it became a symbol instead of a shadow. Deputy Voss's name wasn't whispered anymore. It was printed, spoken, tied to dates and signatures and rerouted units. People didn't agree on everything, but they agreed on one thing. A child had been treated like a pawn, and it didn't get to disappear under paperwork. The Steel Ravens didn't throw a party. They organized. They set up a community line, Rides for runaways, safe stops at shops, a number that didn't route to a desk that could be bought. Tow drivers, nurses, teachers, corner store owners, people who lived in the city instead of managing it, signed on. And on the first Saturday of the next month, a ride rolled out. Not loud, not aggressive, just present. A citywide ride for missing kids. Harper sat on Ryder's bike in the lot outside Raven's Nest Customs, helmet too big, laughing at something only she could find funny. Her cheeks were still thin, but her eyes were bright. Ryder stood behind her, hands on the bars, steady. Eli stood off to the side, half tempted to drift back into the shadows out of habit. Then Ryder called his name. Eli froze. Ryder walked over and didn't offer a speech. He offered something smaller and heavier, a keyring. Mouse talked to a housing program, Ryder said. Temporary place, bed, shower, food, school if you want it. Eli stared at the keys like they were unreal. Why? Ryder's face tightened. Because you brought my daughter back to me. Eli's voice cracked. I didn't. Ryder cut him off quietly. You did. You started the ride. Eli's hands shook as he took the keys. Across the lot, Harper waved at him, small and shy, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to be happy yet. Eli waved back. Engines began to start, one by one, spreading across the city like a promise. And for the first time in a long time, Eli didn't feel invisible. He felt like someone the city would notice if he went missing. The ride rolled out.